AWS config we are going to learn. See guys, by the name, as it is just related to configuration, right? Configuration. For example, if I'll give you one small example, you can easily understand. Let's say you have created EC2 instance. You have created one EC2 instance, and you have set up some configuration. Let's say you have given name of it. You have selected the instance type, let's say T2 micro, and then you have selected a security group. You have created a network security group, and then you have created one what exactly the network you are going to use for it, network interface card, everything you will select, right? So this will be a complete your machine. Now anytime if you will use this config service, if any configuration change will happen, then it will notify like this configuration has been changed, or the entire history. Let's say today you stop the instance and you change this T2 micro to T2 small. If you changed it today and after 10 days you will make it, you will be keeping, you know how many changes you will be keeping. If every changes will store as the history inside the configuration, right? This is the basic purpose of it. Understand guys? Understand?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
whenever let's say today you have created one machine or S3 R1 is EC2 instance you have created. You have selected all the settings for it, all the requirement, all the configurations for both, and uh, whenever any configuration will get changed, any configuration will change with respect to any service, that changes will record, that changes will recorded, that changes will be recorded, so that when in future if you need to see last time what I have modified, easily you will be able to see into the config. Clear? Clear? Yes or no guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what we are going to learn here,
Yes, sir.
let's talk about the let's talk about the AWS config features. Along with that, we'll see how to configure, and there is also something called compliance, that will be the main part or major part of this config. So basically there are two things that you will be able to learn under the config, that I'll show you one by one. So let's start with the first one. Let's say you have a question. So by the question, easily you can understand what exactly the challenges we are having and how it will solve. So the question is, how can you check and ensure that the resources in AWS account comply with your security policies or not? Let's say for you have created some configuration, you have created some resources, you have created some resources, and you on that these resources whatever you have created, it should follow certain rules. And if whether these resources are following this rule or not, who will check? So who will check this? Config will check whether your resources are following the rules or security policies that you have created, or they are not following. So if it will follow, it will come under compliance. If it will not follow, then it will come under non-compliance. Non-compliance, right? If it will follow the rule, it will be compliance. If it will not follow the rule, it will be non-compliance. For example, let's say if you have set up a password policy. You remember what is password policy, guys? You all?
Yes, sir.
So in password policy, we have set up multiple things. For example, if you see here in password policy, at least one upper letter, one lower letter, one number, one character, one symbol. So this password policy you have set up. Now if let's say if there are user 1 and user 2, if user 1 is following this policy, so it will come under compliance, and if user 2 is not following that policy, it will come under non-compliance. means who will not follow the policy, that will come under non-compliance. There is one more example. Let's say S3 bucket. So if you are creating the S3 bucket, so most of the time you are making S3 bucket private, right? You will store your data privately. So what you can do is you can set up a rule like your bucket should not be publicly accessible. So if you have created two bucket, one bucket, two bucket, if bucket one is following the rule, that will come under compliance. Bucket two, which is not following the rule, that will come under non-compliance. Who will check this? The config service will check this. Uh, whether they are following the rules or not. Like the same EC2 instance, they do have public IP address or private IP address kind of it rule if you are setting up. So that will again confirm or ensure by the config service itself. So you will be creating a rule inside the config and it will send you the alert if the rule is getting violated. If rule will become violated means, let's say if you will break the rule, then what will happen? It will send the alert. Let's say all the EC2 instance should be there in the private subnet. They should not have the public IP address. So for example, you have created two machine. One machine is having only private address, private IP, and one machine is having private plus public also. So in config you will create a rule. You will create a rule saying if any machine which is having private IP, they should only come under the compliance. They will be considered as they are following the rule, remaining not. So this will come into compliance, this will come into non-compliance. I hope I made it clear to everyone. That's so simple. Okay, is it clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's move to the next. So what exactly the config will do here? What exactly the config can do? So it is again a service of AWS that is used for assessing, auditing, and evaluating the configuration of your AWS resources. So what all are the configurations you are making of your AWS resources? You can access, you can audit, you can evaluate also that configuration. And it will provide AWS resource inventory, configuration history, and configuration change notification also. These things you will be getting. So what all are the resources you are creating that you can see at a single place under the inventory? And whenever you are changing any resource any time, so with respect to the time, you will be getting the configuration history, means when you have modified what, that you will be getting into configuration history. And if you are changing any configurations, then you can add the SNS also notification with that change of the configuration. It will provide details on all configuration changes also, and it can be used with CloudTrail so that you will be getting the additional details on configuration changes. And you can see there are four things where it will be working: compliance auditing, security analysis, resource change tracking, and troubleshooting. So compliance auditing means whatever rules you are creating, whatever rules you will be creating, like it should not have this IP, public IP, or the network security group should not be open for everybody. That kind of compliances you will be setting up. So it will audit. This config will help us to check it out whether we are following the rule or not, our resource is following the rule or not. And then security analysis, of course it will help us in security analysis whenever it is compiling for compliances. And you can track your resource also. If in any resource, if it is changing, then easily you can track. And this also we are using in troubleshooting, so that because it is having the history, let's say it is having the history. If you have used somewhere T2 micro, it was working, but once you change to T2 small, it was not working. For example, I'm telling you, you will change it to T2 small, it will not work, for example. So by going back to the T2 micro, you can troubleshoot also, like whether it should work, because the last one was working, so it should work. So kind of troubleshooting means something doesn't work, so it will start working. Clear, guys, to everybody?
Yes, sir.
And we will be
Yes,
moving
sir.
up to the capabilities. So the same capabilities it does carry, which we have discussed. It will retrieve an inventory. It will also discover new and deleted resource as well. You can record the configuration changes continuously. And if you want to notify when the configurations are getting changed, that time again, you will be using the config service only. Now we'll try to see the workflow, how exactly this does work. The workflow of config, how AWS config works. So let's suppose if any configuration change will occur in AWS resource, any, either you are using S3 bucket, or you are using EC2, or you are using VPC, or you are using any AWS resource, and if any kind of configuration changes will happen, then AWS config will record the changes, normalize, and it will store into the S3 bucket. And it will automatically evaluate the changes, whatever the rules you are making, and then it will store into uh, it will store into your change history, and then it will also notify through the SNS, and you will be receiving one SNS alert on your email. either you will be able to Either you will be able to perform this work by using console or by using API as well. So this is the workflow. First of all, when any configuration change will happen, AWS config will record that change, it will normalize, and it will store that changes to the S3 bucket, and then it will evaluate the change against your configuration rules, and then it will bring it into compliance or non-compliance. In the notification it will send whenever your configuration will get changed through your email. In these setups you can do it by using AWS management console and AWS SDK API, right? So now whenever we are talking about compliances, guys, so it will help you to meet your security and compliance objective. So if you do have some compliance means some rule. And let's say if I'll make a rule, for example, you are using AWS, and you want that everything should be into private, everything should be into the private. So for example, everything should be in the private. It means that if you are creating a virtual machine, it should have only the private IP. If you are creating the S3 bucket, so S3 bucket should not be publicly accessible, it should not be publicly accessible, it should not be publicly accessible. Let's say if you are creating the VPC, so VPC should be virtual private cloud, no internet gateway should be there to communicate with the internet. So that kind of rules you can create, and later on your resources, whatever you are creating here, resources means your EC2 instances, S3 buckets, and subnets, they all should follow these rules. So this is what it will match with our compliance objective. And you can also monitor the resource usage activity, configuration changes. You can even detect the vulnerabilities. And it is telling it will continuously evaluate the configuration of resources against the rule. So you can set up with respect to the security prevention rules or some compliance rules, right? Some compliance rule. Both you will be able to set up here. And it will also help you in troubleshooting your securities configurations issue as well. Next, we will be seeing the rules, right? What type of rules we do have and how it does work, how we are going to set up. So specifically, this config rule represent a desired configuration for a resource, and it will be evaluated against your configuration changes on the resource. So first of all, you will set up a rule to check against recorded configuration change, or you will be using predefined manage rule, or you can create your custom rules. Both options are there. Predefined rules are there and custom rules are also there. And author custom rules, by using AWS Lambda, you will be having some let's say some custom rules, but that can be customized by the customer by using AWS Lambda also you can do it. And if any rule, will be invoked automatically during your continuous assessment, what it will do, it will bring it in directly into non-compliance, and you will be seeing a dashboard under the config service. You will be seeing a dashboard. Everything will be coming there, which particular service is compliance, which service is non-compliant, right? So for example, let's say uh, AWS config manage rule. Let's say these all are few rules that has been given to you. Now what you can do is you will be having these predefined rules that are mandatory for your best practices, common best practices. For example, IAM user password meet specified requirement, means whatever the policy you are setting. Second, S3 buckets are not publicly accessible. It should not be publicly accessible. Third, EC2 instance should not have the public IP address, and EBS volume should be encrypted. These four rule basically bring your resources into the best practice. So these rules directly we can use into the config service, and we will be able to check it whether we are able to follow the compliance or non-compliance. Is it clear, guys, to everybody? Config service is